Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The courtroom was silent, every gaze fixed on Judge Harold Whitman, a stern-faced man in his 50s with a dubious reputation. He was known for his arrogance, his biased rulings, and his tendency to humiliate those he considered inferior. That day, he had found his new target, General Angela Thompson, a respected officer and pioneering black woman in the U.S. Army, whose exemplary career had inspired hundreds of soldiers. Angela entered the courtroom with a straight and confident stride. Her immaculate uniform gleamed under the courtroom lights, each medal and decoration reflecting years of dedicated service. She knew why she was there. A ridiculous complaint, fabricated by officers jealous of her success, had been brought against her. But she never would have imagined that Judge Whitman himself would seize the opportunity to humiliate her in front of everyone. As soon as she stood before the judge's bench, Whitman gave a mocking smile and snapped his fingers. "Well, General Thompson, you think you're above everyone else?" Her voice was icy, but tinged with contempt. The room shuddered. Angela felt her hands tighten slightly, but she remained calm. "Your rank won't protect you here," Whitman continued, leaning slightly towards her. "Here, you're just a simple defendant. And I'm going to show you your place." The murmurs of the spectators filled the room. Angela's colleagues averted their eyes, uncomfortable with the judge's cruelty. But Angela, despite the weight of the humiliation, showed no emotion. Her gaze, determined and burning with suppressed anger, pierced Whitman like a silent warning. This public humiliation would not go unpunished. As she left the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Every step she took resonated like a challenge. Whitman, confident of his victory, didn't know that this impulsive act had just set in motion a chain of events that would lead to his own downfall. Angela knew one thing: justice could be slow, but it always caught up with the corrupt. And that day, even humiliated, she had just sown the seed of a revenge that would surprise everyone. General Angela Thompson's office was silent, save for the steady ticking of the wall clock. The walls were adorned with photographs of past missions and medals, mute witnesses to decades of service. But on this day, no honor seemed capable of soothing the pain of the humiliation suffered just hours earlier before Judge Whitman. Angela sat down behind her desk, removing her white gloves with military precision. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment to calm the anger that was boiling inside her. Every word the judge said echoed in her head: "Here, you're just a defendant." Her military aides, all black and white, watched the scene with concern. They knew Angela never lost her composure, but today even they felt the tension. She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. The voice on the other end was firm but reassuring. "Margaret? It's Angela. We need to talk. Whitman has gone too far." A few minutes later, Federal Prosecutor Margaret Lewis, a former classmate and trusted friend, was in the office. Together, they began reviewing the situation, emails, witness statements, and documents from past cases. Every detail was crucial. Whitman wasn't just arrogant, he was corrupt, and his public humiliation was only part of his method for intimidating and crushing those who dared to stand up to him. Angela, ever calm but resolute, drew up a plan. She didn't want immediate, impulsive revenge. She wanted to expose Whitman beyond any doubt. "If we do this correctly," she told Margaret, "he'll never be able to recover. And no one will ever forget what he did today." As the sun set behind the office windows, Angela felt a newfound determination surge through her. Every injustice she suffered was a spark for the battle she was ready to wage. Whitman thought he had extinguished it that morning, but he didn't know he had just lit a fire he would soon regret. The days following the public humiliation were marked by intense but discreet activity. General Angela Thompson knew that acting too quickly or too loudly would be dangerous. Whitman was powerful, but he was not invincible. Every decision had to be carefully calculated. Angela and Margaret Lewis, his confidant and ally in the legal system, embarked on a meticulous investigation. They collected all kinds of evidence: compromising emails, testimonies from intimidated officials, dubious financial documents, and even recordings of conversations in which Whitman threatened or bribed other judges. Each piece of the puzzle revealed a clear pattern: Whitman was not only unjust, he was deeply corrupt. Meanwhile, Whitman continued his activities as if nothing had happened, savoring his supposed victory. He held private meetings with colleagues and boasted of his authority, unaware that his downfall was being prepared with every email sent and every word spoken in public. Angela, however, took a different approach. She worked in silence, feigning an almost cold patience. She met with her allies in secret, sketched out precise plans, and anticipated every possible reaction from the judge. Each document gathered, each corroborated testimony strengthened her case, ready to be revealed at the precise moment. One evening, as she left her office late at night, Angela gazed at the illuminated city from the terrace of her headquarters. She remembered the judge's humiliating words, but instead of anger, she felt a calm determination. This humiliation, she thought, would not be the end of her, but the beginning of her revenge. "In 5 days, everyone will know the truth," she murmured to herself. And in those 5 days, the silent justice she was preparing would strike harder than anything Whitman could have imagined. 5 days after the public humiliation, tension mounted in the hushed corridors of the justice system. General Angela Thompson and prosecutor Margaret Lewis had finalized their case. Every piece of evidence was meticulously organized, every document verified, and every testimony corroborated. This was no longer simply a matter of personal revenge, it was an investigation designed to expose a corrupt system, and Whitman was going to be its symbol. That very morning, Angela and Margaret filed the case with the Federal Judicial Oversight Committee. Officials, initially surprised by the sheer volume of evidence, could not deny the seriousness of the accusations: manipulation of files, witness intimidation, and several documented cases of favoritism and corruption. Whitman, accustomed to acting with impunity, suddenly found himself in the official spotlight. The news spread quickly. The media began reporting the accusations against Judge Whitman, and social media erupted. The judge's colleagues, some complicit, others simply frightened, realized the tide had turned. The same man who had publicly humiliated Angela 5 days earlier was now facing his own public humiliation. Whitman tried to respond, sending messages to ease tensions and calling influential contacts, but each action seemed to worsen his situation. Angela, on the other hand, remained calm, observing the initial reactions from afar. Every smile of satisfaction she suppressed concealed a silent triumph: justice, at last, was beginning to be served. That day marked the beginning of a domino effect. Whitman's allies began to distance themselves, the judicial system exerted pressure, and intimidated witnesses regained the courage to speak out. Whitman's downfall was no longer a mere possibility, it had become inevitable. The courtroom was packed that morning. The media had been invited to cover the hearing, and dozens of witnesses and officials were present. General Angela Thompson entered, her immaculate uniform and medals gleaming in the lights, a living symbol of discipline and strength. Her composure and dignity commanded respect from all who beheld her. Judge Harold Whitman, usually so self-assured, wore a tense expression for the first time. The evidence gathered by Angela and Margaret had been made public, and public opinion was now on their side. Whitman had lost all support and credibility. Angela spoke, in a clear and measured voice. "Your Honor, for years you have used your position to intimidate and corrupt. But justice is not a matter of title or rank. It is a matter of integrity. Today, this room reminds you of that." Every word echoed in the room. Whitman, unable to respond, lowered his gaze. The witnesses and colleagues who had been intimidated found the courage to speak. Each piece of evidence presented strengthened the general's argument. Finally, the Oversight Committee and the court made a historic decision: Whitman was immediately suspended and charged with bribery and abuse of power. The downfall of the man who had publicly humiliated Angela 5 days earlier was complete and irreversible. Angela left the courthouse to the admiring gaze of everyone present. The anger that had consumed her a few days earlier had been transformed into a silent triumph. She had not only obtained justice for herself, but she had also demonstrated that integrity and strength of character could bring down even the most corrupt figures. As she was getting into her car, a journalist asked her, General Thompson, how do you feel after all this? Angela smiled, with that quiet strength that inspired respect and admiration. Justice has spoken. And no one can ignore any longer that integrity always triumphs in the end. And so, the public humiliation inflicted by Whitman became her own downfall. 5 days later, the whole world saw the truth, and the black general, a symbol of courage and dignity, had proven that justice could catch up with even the most arrogant.